Hello and welcome to the Fun Kids Bookworms podcast. My name is Bex, I love books, and get ready to all other book lovers out there because it's a very special episode this week. It's time to celebrate the stories and the storytellers that have captured the hearts and imaginations of readers across the UK with the Week Junior Book Awards. Now, these awards shine a spotlight on the very best in kids' books, from amazing adventures to fascinating facts to laugh out loud fun and jaw-dropping illustrations. And the most exciting part is that the Children's Choice and the Cover of the Year award is publicly voted, so you can get your say on who should win those categories. If you want to find out more and check out the full shortlist, go to the Week Junior bookawards.co.uk. I've also got to point out, I'm also a judge of the Book Awards for the audiobook category, so I'm very, very excited about this. Now, we have got some of the books that have been nominated this year in the Book Awards to tell you all about. First up, it is Deborah Meaden. Now, she's got a new book called Deborah Meaden Talks Money. It's in the running for Best Factual Book of the Year, so if you've ever wondered where money comes from, how to make it work for you, Deborah shares some really fun stories and smart advice on saving and spending. So let's find out more. I am joined right now by, TV hero, author, business person, Deborah Meaden. How are you doing, Deborah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good because I've read your book and I now feel more prepared to enter the world, which I probably should have done quite a long time ago. Now, this is Deborah Meaden Talks Money, and it is an incredible book explaining everything from where money came from, like the original versions of money, to modern money like cryptocurrency. So you really do go through the whole history of finance, right?
Well, I do. It's astonishing to me that money isn't, firmly based in the school curriculum because it just runs through everything in life. And I sort of started off talking about money in quite narrow terms and then thought, well, actually, wage slips, your first job, how all that works, how cryptocurrency works, how invisible money works. So sort of what started off as quite a sort of thin book, I had to contain myself because there's a lot to talk about.
There is so much in there, and a lot of it, maybe our listeners are thinking, I don't need to know about wages and mortgages, but you kind of do, and it's going to come around quicker than you think. Let's go to first jobs. I had my first job working for my dad when I was about 13, and yeah, getting your first payslip, it's a big deal, but you need to know your rights. You need to know the minimum wage. You need to know what you deserve, right?
Well, you do, and also it's interesting. People kind of assume you know the language. National insurance, what does that mean? Why am I paying national insurance? Is it a good thing? Should I be happy that I'm paying it? So it isn't a book that goes into, massive detail on each thing, but it's meant to give everybody enough understanding. I always say you need to know enough to know what you need to know, if if you understand what I mean.
I remember the first payslip I got, I was like, who's this Nat Ince? Why is he getting all this money?
Exactly. Actually, you're so right. So we actually did an illustration of a payslip because not only is there a new language, but they're all shortened and they kind of assume that you know what it all means. So yeah, that was a big one.
It's like reading a riddle or a code. And reading your book, it was really, really helpful because there's a few things that I was like, I've always assumed I know what this means, but let's just double check all of the lingo. And it does help because I think also there is an assumption we just know these things when we don't. So people don't ask the questions because they feel like they should know.
That is so true. I think that, I found this with cryptocurrency. A lot of people not really, they heard it. It's a buzzword. Everyone's talking about it, but not really understanding what cryptocurrency was and how it all worked. But because everybody starts a conversation sounding like they know what it means, no one dares say, I don't really know what that is, So my book was kind of trying to take everybody back to the beginning to say, this is the basis that you can, of understanding that you need to have. And then you can ask loads of questions.
And also you talk about stuff that maybe, to be honest, Deborah, I'm going to put it out there, maybe first instinct sounds, it's going to be really boring. Stuff like inflation and mortgages, but actually, again, really interesting and really useful to know about.
Well, so if you Google inflation, it's very dry and there's a lot of words and you think, what does that mean for me? The important thing is, what does it mean to you? And, what does it mean to your life and what you need to do about it? So I was really keen, the whole book's in these sort of bite-sized chunks. So that you didn't feel like you were doing, it wasn't homework. It was something that you could do in these sort of quick, short, you could think, oh, yeah, I know about inflation. I know why that matters to me. So I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly why and how it was written.
Yeah, honestly, it's so accessible, and so you make it so interesting as well. And also, yeah, I found it really interesting about the interest. I found interest interesting because you talk about compound interest and simple interest, and that was stuff I was like, I don't know whether I knew about that, and I probably should have done. So yeah.
Well, that is so true. And I one of my biggest reading groups was the grandparents who bought the books for their teenage, grandchildren, and emailed me or messaged me and said, I read it first because there's a lot of stuff in there I didn't understand that I felt I probably should if I'm going to give it to my grandchildren, so, which I loved, I thought that's brilliant.
Particularly, like you say, crypto, I think that is quite a new thing, and maybe a younger audience know a bit more about it. But yeah, for adults, it's probably a little bit of a scary new world.
Well, it is. And the whole invisible money thing, listen, in a lot of our lives, money was in your pocket. Once it was gone, it was gone. How do you manage this invisible money piece? Because it's going to happen more and more. I can see in my lifetime, there will be no physical cash. So, so that's a very important thing. And again, it's one of those things that nobody really stopped to explain, so that's what it is.
Speaking of money as well, going back to that, you talk about how basically money is money because we trust that it is almost. That's kind of how it works, right?
Money could be anything. Money could be a pair of gloves. It's just, if the government says to you, look, if you take that, whatever it is, into a store and you can exchange it for goods and we believe them, that's money. It's purely and simply based on trust. You get things like hyperinflation. So that's where the money, it gets completely out of control. A pair of gloves will cost £35,000 one day, and then 40,000 the next day, and 50,000 the next day. That happens when we lose trust. We don't believe that it's worth anything. So we start making up our own values.
I've got to say, I'm going to see if I can pitch it to my Fun Kids bosses, if I can make my own currency. I was thinking like Beck's Books or something like that. See if that would work.
That works. It's got a good name. Good name. Yeah, good brand. I like that, Bex.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think they'll really fall for it, but you never know.
I know, but give it a go. You should always give it a go.
Yeah, give it a try. You also you have interviews in the book as well with some really big names. You've got Gary Neville, you've got Joe Lycett, you've got Sophie Ellis-Bextor. It's quite cool as well to get different perspectives on money and how they view spending and saving as well as people who you expect to just have loads of cash, right?
Yes, I found those really, really interesting. To talk through, how they dealt with money, how it came into their lives. And they have the same learnings, the same anxieties. They've had the same experiences. We've all spent too much money at some point in our lives. So I thought it was really interesting to see it from all those different perspectives. And as you say, from people who you think have got lots of money, wouldn't have any of those issues, but actually we all have them. Everybody has that sort of underlying, because money is so important in our lives. Everybody has that sort of underlying anxiety of how do I manage it? And much more important, this is the single most important thing for me. How do I make money make my life better? Don't be a slave to your money. Make sure your money's working for you. And all of the tools in the book, everything I talk about in the book is all about making sure that you use your money to make your life better.
And speaking of which, what top tip would you have for any listeners right now? What would you say to them to make sure they do or look out for or prepare for?
Well, obviously, buy my book.
Of course. Oh, that's a given.
Buy my book. Carry it around with you at all time. And when you think somebody is giving you a load of nonsense, just refer to the book.
Use your money to buy the book.
Exactly. It's a very, very good investment. No, I think the most important thing is that when you spending money is fine, wasting money isn't. So really think about the value of that money. I have a rule at home on clothing, for example, that says, if I buy something, something has to go out. And it forces me to think, do I really want that thing more than the things that I currently have? So value is all about, it's not instantaneous. We all get that moment of something new turning up and you go, oh, that's lovely. But if you put it to one side and you never use it, that's not value for money. If you actually buy something that adds to your life long term, that's value for money.
No, I think money is just so important, and I don't think that I certainly was never trained or schooled in it or to talk about it. So it's this book, Deborah, honestly, is incredible. Thank you so much for telling us all about it. And I'm guessing Deborah Meaden Talks Money is out in every possible shop, right?
Every possible shop and everywhere online. So yes, absolutely. I just want to get it into as many hands as possible. And that's not because I want to make money out of it, by the way. Although I shouldn't say that, should I? It's just, for me, it feels such an important such an important book, that I just want, I just want as many young people to read it and make sure their money's working for them.
I love Deborah. She was great. What a fun person to talk to. Next up, it's Poetry Book of the Year, and Matt Goodfellow is up as a nominee for this one for his book, Tomorrow We Begin. Let's have a little chat, shall we? So I am joined right now by author, poet, and at this point, friend of the show, Matt Goodfellow. How you doing, Matt?
I'm all right, Bex. Yeah, fine. It's great to be here.
It is lovely to speak to you. And this time we are talking about your now award-nominated book, Tomorrow We Begin. This is Poems to Find Yourself In, a lovely and beautiful poetry collection. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a poetry collection. It's a high school poetry collection, really. It's Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4. It's just sort of poems about the journey of high school, which is a fascinating time in your life,
Oh man, 11 to 16-ish, would we say? That's the peak of this book. That's where we're reading from the beginning to the end of secondary school.
Yeah, it sort of runs roughly chronologically through high school. So yeah, 11 to 16 is perfect.
And you've got the kind of beginning where it's, your blazer's too big, you don't know anyone, you kind of hate it, but you kind of want to get involved a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's high school's a strange time. Certainly, in English state schools, you come out of primary school and you've had the same teacher, and suddenly you're thrown into this sort of what can be a bit of a meat grinder at high school, and it's it throws up all sorts of strange things, as well as you're growing up as a human, and that throws all sorts of strange stuff up. So it's a pretty interesting time.
And there is something quite interesting about poetry, and I think your poetry in particular, you really do capture the mood. If you get a good poem that really relates to how you feel, it does feel like something's been unlocked inside you. It feels like you're not alone, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah, and that's really kind of you to say. I try to write poems that sort of move people in a way, and recognising, I think, that life is a bit difficult, and at high school it's a bit of a time when you're thinking, what's going on, man? And if you can read a bit of stuff that makes you think, I'm not alone, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I loved poetry as a kid. I also tried to write it a bit as a kid because it's just something about it that made me, feel less alone and feel like I could get my emotions out. And you do cover quite a lot of emotions and feelings in this book, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's strange stuff in there. There's sad stuff. There's happy stuff. I sort of write for the fireworks that I have in my head, and sometimes when I'm, and life throws up these different emotions. And really, what I'm saying is to young people, these are my thoughts and feelings and ideas, and you'll have them as well. And if you're interested in writing about them, it matters.
And I know you were a teacher as well. So were you using your time as a teacher as your inspiration, or as your own time in secondary school?
It's a bit of everything, really, Bex. Everything I write, and I've probably said this before, everything I write is either it's one of three things or a combination. It's my lives that I've seen, and stuff that I make up. So there's bits of me in the collection. There's also bits of my kids. I've got a 19-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter, and watching them go through stuff sort of dredges up stuff from your own life. And so you sort of, everything's put together. I work a lot in high schools as well, so there's bits and bats of everything in there.
Do you feel like some stuff just doesn't change as well? The stuff your kids are going through, it probably is very similar to what you went through?
Yeah, in some ways, yeah. And it is an interesting time. You're not a child anymore, but you're not an adult. So there's this flux, this tension, which is where sort of creativity, I think, comes from. And this idea of where do we go, what do we do, which to be honest, has never really left me. It's just a fascinating thing to be able to talk about, I think.
And do you have like a particular favourite poem in this kind of anthology, or is it just like you can't pick?
Well, there's a couple of, there's a lot of poems I like. The two that really relate strongest to my kids, there's a poem called Stone Cold, which is sort of my son sort of talking about life and love. And then there's a poem called Tribe, which is about my daughter Daisy. And they're both very different characters, and I'm moving to high school for my son Will. It didn't bother him at all. Daisy's a very different character, and the tribe is about her sort of in year 7, the friendship changes and stuff. So I like those 2 poems.
Oh man, friendship, politics at secondary school, especially if you've gone from a primary to a secondary school, you might be split up from your friends, you might make new friends. It is quite a nerve-wracking time, right?
Yes, hugely. And young people are experiencing all these tumultuous emotions for the first time. So you sort of feel things a bit more, I think, you know. Sort of what I'm trying to say is that, you know, when young people feel stuff, music, words, if you're wired in the way that means that you want to talk about your life, then you can do.
And what do you think is the benefit of getting all of these kind of feelings and experiences out in poetry rather than a novel or a book?
Oh, well, I don't really know. I don't know. That's up to each individual. For me, you know, I've got ADHD. For me, getting stuff out in a quick way is always great because I'll be bored otherwise.
Yeah, I like with a poetry collection, you can read one and you can flick through and maybe read another and then come back to it later on. You don't feel kind of like beholden to it and you have to read the whole thing in one go.
Yeah, and I'm not. I sort of I don't like being boxed in by things, and poetry collections are great. Like you say, to pick up, read a poem, come back to it, and you know the short little snapshots of thoughts and feelings and ideas.
And how did it feel to get nominated for the Week Junior Book Award? Because that is, I mean, they're becoming quite a big deal.
Yeah, any award, it's always nice. It's nice to be recognised for the stuff that you do. So any award that you nominate for is great.
That's a very diplomatic answer. I appreciate that. Have you been eyeing up the competition? Because if I was you, I'd immediately go and check everyone else out.
No, not really. No, there's a place for everybody and everything, and awards are funny things, really. And it's not really what I write for. I write for the young people. So there's a lot of awards that I've won over the time, and most of the awards that I've won are voted for by young people. And when the young people that you're writing for are voting for you, that sort of adds an extra sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, what's it like when you go into schools? Do you get to like read the poems to them? Do they read poems to you? Like, how does it work? And do you feel the emotion kind of come back at you?
Yeah, and like part of my job is trying to demystify poetry a little bit, because the English state education system by the age of 16 will have most people believe that poetry has nothing to do with their lives. It's not teachers' fault, it's just the way the system is. But yet everybody listens to music. And even, you know, I go into schools and I've got tattoos and stuff, and people are like, "Oh, are you the poet?" I'm like, "Yeah." So it's my job really is not to make anybody a poet. My job is just to go in and speak to young people and say, you know, I write poetry because I find life pretty difficult at times. And if you're interested, here's a space that's different to the rest of writing that teachers are forced to teach in the education system. It's a space where you can just play with thoughts and feelings and ideas. So it's just about chatting to young people and saying, your life matters, your experiences matter. Here's a space where you can just mess around with it if you want to do.
Oh, it's such a good thing to get out there, because, yeah, I think if you're at school, and maybe people listening right now will feel this, I mean, the main thing I remember doing was war poetry, and I was like, I'm not in World War One. I guess this is a noble art form, but it doesn't really relate to me. But then when you find books like yours that kind of like talk at you about what you've been doing, it is an amazing thing to read.
Well, I hope so. Again, that's really kind of you. Yeah, my aim is to let people, you know, just know that they're not alone, and that in this difficult time, there is bits and things that you can read and see and hopefully recognise yourself within. And if that moves you in some way, that's pretty cool. And if it makes people go, do you know what? I can have a go at that. I can talk in my accent. I can talk about my life. I can talk in my dialect. Then it's you know, it's an interesting space to say to people, your cultural heritage matters, your voice matters, and young people's voices are very powerful.
Absolutely, and even more so in poetry, I think. Well, Matt, thank you so much for telling us about Tomorrow We Begin, and good luck at the awards as well. Will I see you there? Are you going to be going down there?
I don't know, Bex. I never really know where I am or where I'm supposed to be, so there's an outside chance you might do.
Well, I'm going to be there myself, so if you're there, come and say hello. But in the meantime, thank you so much for chatting to us.
Cheers, Bex. Thanks very much.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much to Matt for telling us all about Tomorrow We Begin. And finally, well, we've got to speak to somebody who's up for cover of the year. This is a book called A Head Full of Magic by Sarah Morrell. It's about Fleur, who's dealing with bullies, family drama, and a surprise discovery that she can talk to animals. Oh, Sarah, it's a pleasure to have you on, because we need to discuss your book, A Head Full of Magic, which is such a beaut.
Thank you very much. I know perhaps I'm slightly biased. I'm really, really proud of it, and super chuffed with the cover. So yeah, it's. I'm really pleased that you're enjoying it.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about with this book. So, I mean, you've mentioned the cover. Let's talk about that. Is it a new cover? Is this a new edition?
This is a new cover. It is a new edition. So yeah, I think with this cover, I'm so chuffed with it. It's just bursting with everything that the book is about. So we've got, Fleur centre stage right in the middle of the cover there. And I was a little bit cheeky because Fleur finds out that she can perform magic. But there's a definite hockey theme to this as well. She's struggling a little bit with ankle bashing new girl Celeste the Best. So I wanted the cover to reflect, obviously, I wouldn't say the loathing of cricket, the loathing of hockey. She certainly comes to love it in the end. But in terms of the hockey stick, that it looks a little bit like a magic wand. So that was very much what we wanted to do, and really just introduce the fun and the magic and everything that we've got going on in the book.
Now, because we should say the cover's been nominated for the Week Junior, right, for their book awards.
It has. I know. So thrilled to hear that. It's brilliant news. I have been chatting about it to anybody and everyone who will listen to me. They're probably getting fed up of it by now, but I'm certainly not bored of telling people. So yeah, I was really, really thrilled about the shortlist nomination.
Oh. If I was you, I'd be telling everybody I met in the shops, strangers. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we are going into those depths. I have to say, definitely.
I'm here for it. Yes, I know we should never judge a book by its cover, but with your book, we definitely should, because it's an excellent cover and an excellent book. I really enjoyed it. It's about Fleur, who lives with her nan and her mum, and on the surface, things seem normal. She's in year 6. She's thinking about end of term, and then everything kind of takes a turn in general because, well, first of all, quite a few things happen, but she has, like you say, Celeste the Best comes and kind of steals her friends away from her.
She does, and does it in a really quite a sly way. So yeah, Fleur's really, really struggling with that. She was quite happy playing chess with her friends and, meeting up together and just doing all the fun stuff that the three of them have previously enjoyed doing. And so, yes, Celeste certainly does put a cat amongst the pigeons, or should I say African grey parrots in there as well. So Fleur's struggling to come to terms with the fact that her friends seem to be choosing Celeste and slipping away from her. At the same time as also discovering some unusual things around her. So she finds out that she can talk to animals, and the first animal that she converses with is none other than Sir Berkeley Wigbert Titus Smythe, which is Fleur's nan's African grey parrot that lives up in her attic room with her.
And he's a little bit snooty. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to say he's if you were to have the power of being able to speak to animals, he's not the one that you'd want the first kind of interaction to be with, right?
No, he isn't. He's not the warmest of creatures. Very cantankerous, quite grumpy, supercilious. All of these words that I floated around when I wanted to pull this character together. Yeah, he does think he's a little bit special and is a bit of a cut above the rest. But what I really wanted to bring out in this story was that sometimes the strangest and most unusual friendships can appear sometimes when you're not expecting them. So lots of fun and games to be had between Fleur and Sir Berkeley, and just the interactions between them, which do start off quite frosty until they realise that actually they're much stronger when they work together.
Yeah, they have to work as a team. And also, Fleur is kind of discovering a lot about herself, because this power of being able to speak to animals, it comes kind of out of the blue, and suddenly her world is turned upside down. She can hear the ants, she can hear the birds, she can hear like dogs everywhere.
That's it. And it's very much, it's a head full of magic, but it's also a head full of problems and issues that she's having to face. And she does have her nan, and I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but there is certainly more to nan that meets the eye. And really, she's bottling everything in, not wanting to trouble her mum, not wanting to really trouble her nan, and do, I suppose, what a lot of young children and teenagers do, which is take a lot of of this on their own shoulders, and try and keep it in until it comes to a point where actually she needs to spill the beans and talk to somebody. And it just so happens that that person in that first instance is Sir Berkeley. And Sir Berkeley really does help her understand a little bit more. And really, it's the friendship between them of one suggesting, you really need to speak to somebody about this, because sometimes a problem shared is a problem halved. So, yeah, there's a lot going on for Fleur.
Yeah, on that note, by the way, when she tells her teacher, and he doesn't seem the most responsive, I was angry on everybody's behalf.
It's always a difficult one. I'm very lucky that I suppose the experiences of my children's teachers have always been very, very positive. So I didn't really intend to create a teacher character that wasn't particularly sympathetic, but it just felt right in the moment. It's another thing for Fleur to have to deal with is the fact that not everybody is prepared to listen to her, and actually that they can't see that Celeste is lying and being quite scheming and conniving behind her back, which I think makes that betrayal of her friends all the more difficult.
As the reader, you can see it and you're like, no, why is everybody falling for this? But you know what? It kept me reading and turning the pages, because also Celeste has her own, again, I don't want to give too much away, but Celeste has her own reasons for being how she is.
That's it, absolutely. And it's only a little bit later on that you realise actually Fleur's struggling to come to terms with a lot of things, and so too is Celeste. And maybe there's something that brings the two of them together, perhaps a mutual understanding. But again, I don't want to say too much and spoil it for anybody who hasn't yet finished the story.
Oh, it's such a great book. I really did enjoy it. Are you thinking of any more stories in that world, or are you moving on to different ones?
No, absolutely. So I think there's certainly a few more tales and adventures with Fleur and Sir Berkeley and her magical family. So having fun exploring those, and definitely lots and lots of other stories at the moment. Flying Leopards, I think I can't seem to leave this one alone at the moment. So it's a day in the life of a children's author where you see something very, maybe something basic, something really normal, somebody hopping on a bus, or a bird has flown by, or something really not particularly ordinary, but just it triggers your thought process, and before you know it, you're plotting and planning something that you didn't really set out to do. But that's the fun and the magic of writing and storytelling.
So that was such a fab book. I really did love it. Sarah Morrell, thank you for telling us about A Head Full of Magic, and congratulations on the nomination for the Week Junior Cover of the Year. I'm guessing we can grab the book in bookshops and online and in libraries.
You absolutely can, yes. And really excited and really pleased to be nominated, particularly against lots of the other fabulous authors and books that are out there. So yeah, chuffed to bits.
Well, a little taster of 3 of the books that are nominated for the Week Junior Book Awards. Oh my goodness, I've got to say, I think this year is an absolute winner. All of the books in all of the categories are brilliant. And if you want to find out more about the shortlists, all you've got to do is head to theweekjuniorBookAwards.co.uk to get involved. I'll be back soon with even more books. Bye.